That's the Miki Berenyi Trio from their debut album, Tripla. Miki was the voice of shoegaze legends Lush. Here she is now to tell us how, why, and when the trio and Tripla came together.
We've had these songs for a while, and then they were kind of recorded and finished by like August.
Right.
So it feels like, there's a bit of a
out.
kind of, oh yeah, we've got an album coming out. I forgot, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, there's also, and my understanding is that when the trio formed, you were kind of doing it mostly to do Lush songs and stuff, but then at some point you decided that you're going to be making original music, and I was wondering, A, if that's true, and B, what caused that change to occur, if that indeed happened.
So basically, the reason we were even doing Lush songs is because I'd written a book and I was doing live book events, and they like you to play some music if you can, because it's a music book, and I don't like doing things on my own because it's disastrous. So that's why the three of us were doing them together. And then, we were kind of enjoying ourselves. We were sort of, doing little backing tracks, and, because Moose was playing, we were sort of adapting them a bit. Because I said to Moose, look, don't try and replicate. There's no point in us trying to replicate the song because we're not going to be able to. So let's just muck about with it. It's a gesture, We'll play a couple of songs. I'll do the book talk, etc. But basically, it started to expand a bit, and people were like, oh, you could do a whole set and do the talk. We could make a whole night of it and blah, blah, blah. So it just kind of took over. And then we started to get offered gigs without the book talk.
Right.
And at that point, I did think, I don't want to be a Lush covers band. I really don't. So then if we're going to do that, then we need original songs. And so that's kind of how it happened. It was quite organic.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And so did you have songs already ready to go, or did you write these songs specifically for this album?
Specifically. I mean, we didn't really have an album in mind even at that point. We were just thinking, well, let's just put these, we're quite enjoying playing, right. So we'll just put them in the set and we'll see what happens later. We had no plan. Okay. So we are flying by the seat of our pants.
Well, people must have enjoyed hearing them, and did you get good response? Would it have made any difference if you hadn't?
Well, we kept getting bookings, so I took that as quite a good sign. And and we did get good feedback. And then, Bella Union, we put, I was in a band, Piroshka, and we had, records on Bella Union then. So, they seemed very happy to put it out. So, blah, 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 path of least resistance.
Nice one. All right. And is there a song that kind of started the process off as far as the writing goes? What's the oldest one on the record?
The oldest one is Big I Am. I actually think that the backing track for that was in a folder of possible songs for the next Piroshka album. Gotcha. But Piroshka kind of, fizzled out. So having started work on it, I thought, well, we can just use it for the new band. And then Vertigo is a track we put out. I mean, we put that out about a year ago because it was kind of when we were going to go on tour in America. Again, we didn't have an album, right? Just decided that there was an opportunity to tour America, so we did that. And then we put that track out, and that was actually an old song of Ollie's. I think it was a demo that he'd written. And so I kind of reworked it a bit, but just do what you need to do to be able to play gigs, really. That seems to be the main driving force.
Gotcha. And when you're in the studio, how do the three of you interact? Is there a hierarchy, a process, a vibe that you kind of have in there?
I mean, there's barely a studio, if I'm honest. It's more you know, there's a lot of kind of working separately. Like, you might sort of start up a song and just put it on kind of, on Logic or something, and then files go back and forth, and we've got a little rehearsal room. So it just gets patched together. We don't have the money to hire a studio or a producer. So it's all a bit, you know, here, there, and in between.
Mm,
Seems to
mm.
work anyway.
This is not quite the romanticize. You're thinking of the Beatles and Abbey Road all together is not quite the same story as, oh, we sent some files back and forth and we ended up
I
with.
know, but it is the thing that, I mean, obviously me and Moose live together, but Ollie lives in St Leonard's, which is, it's a couple of hours on the train.
Right.
Um, and he's got a little studio in his garden. So there is a point that we reach where you think, the track's almost finished, but it is nice to get together and three of us in a room and sit there going, oh, I just think this bit needs something, or spark ideas off, or whatever. But it's a bit needs must. And I think, I don't really mind that, actually. It's sort of to be honest, when Lush split up back in 1996, like the first time,
Right.
when this kind of new wave of all technology kind of happened, and even when we kind of Lush reformed and did an EP, that was in a studio with Jim Abbis and Daniel Hunt. And I was still very much kind of in that world where, oh, this is what you do. You go in a studio and you have a producer, and it costs a fortune and blah, blah, blah. But it was only really, well, after that with Poroshka, that I started to realize, well, you can actually, all the technology's there. It's just a different experience. So,
Yep. 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 Okay. Very good. And you called the album Tripla, which my understanding is it's Hungarian for triple.
yeah.
Um, and you are a trio. Is there a reason, or is there a significance to the three?
I mean, to be honest, so this guy Chris Big does our album sleeves, and he used to work at 4AD as well. So he did the Lush sleeves as well with Vaughan Oliver. He did the Poroshka stuff. So pretty much, I think everything that I've actually put out as an album with my kind of, me being a key member of whatever band, has always had Chris's designs, right?
Uh-huh.
And I am so bad with titles. It was the same with the book, that
Right.
it is the last thing that comes. It's the last thing when everybody's calling you and screaming that they need a title. And what has ended up happening is that every time I have to pick a title, it's happened because of Chris's artwork, because I'm so desperate at that stage for inspiration that I tend to riff off that. And
Right.
his whole theme for, even the covers EP that we put out, and so his kind of theme for all the sleeves so far with MB3 have been like working around threes. So there's a, oh, well, you won't have
Yeah.
seen it yet because the album's not out, but there's lots of things with three. And I thought,
Right.
okay,
Okay.
well, this is where we're going, right? And you know basically, threesome and things like that have weird connotations, but
Yes.
tripler sounds kind of, there's something sort of quite upbeat about it. It sounds, it sounds nice. So that's what I
Yep. Yeah.
picked.
And over the course of rock and roll history, there have been some very notable trios, Cream and Jimi Hendrix Experience, and people like that. So there's a legacy there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think, I don't know, three, four, five, whatever. I don't really think about that. I mean, to me, there is a bit of it that, yes, it's a trio, but that's because there's no drummer. So in a
Right.
funny way, it still doesn't seem like a trio, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Yep. Yes. And have you considered a live drummer, or are you happy with the way things are?
I mean, we're happy with the way things are, because if we got a drummer in, our costs would double.
Right.
We are literally talking practicalities here.
Gotcha.
And with the three of us, we can just, we can hire a car, we can rehearse in a tiny little room in my garden. So all
Right.
of these things are made possible by just being a kind of slightly nimble threesome. If I had all the money in the world, right, yes,
Yep.
I
Yep.
would have a drummer. I'd have a keyboard player as well, and someone to do backing vocals.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Now, I was wondering if we can just touch on a couple of tunes that are on the record, because, as you say, it's not out yet, but I have heard the whole thing, so I was lucky enough to do that. You have, and you have one called Gango, I believe, which is kind of almost funky sounding, and it kind of stood out as something to. I don't know if you want to talk about how deep you want to go into the actual song itself, or just general stuff about it.
Yeah, I think Gango was. Do you know what? It's another. See, this is how bad I am at titles. It's the working title because we went on tour
Okay.
with a gang of four, and
Okay.
and it was watching them that made me kind of want to write a song that starts with slightly disparate elements that you don't resolve for a while, and that's all I had going, and that's why I called it Gango. And then the title never got changed because I couldn't be bothered to think of anything else. But and yeah, so it I quite like. I haven't done that for a while actually, starting a song from the bass and drums. You know, a lot of my songs will just be like you could busk them. You know what I mean, with a
Right.
guitar. It
Yeah.
just it's melody and a guitar part. But every now and again, I like to mix it up a bit and start with the bass and drums.
Right. And let's face it, Gang of Four had some serious bass lines going through their stuff over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they were, you know, they've got that kind of punk funk sort of
Yep.
element as well.
Yeah. Yes. And the other one I wanted to touch on was Hurricane. I'm not sure why, but it kind of struck a nerve, struck a chord, if you will.
Oh, probably because it's quite, you know, it's actually quite a basic sort of garagey rock song, I think. And it,
There you
you know,
go.
and that was the essence of it. So because we were writing songs to play live, I wasn't really thinking of the recording, and I just felt that the set needed something a little bit heavy and, you know, that kind of vibe. So I wrote that. It's undergone, that has gone like through the mill. It's had so many changes because it really was just, I mean, people liked it as a basic
Right.
kind of garage song. It went down really well live. But I think when we were actually thinking of once we were doing the record, it kind of wasn't really working with the rest of it. So we just threw a load of electronica on it and kind of, yeah, reworked it a bit. But it was, again, another working title. Oh my God. It actually started from the inspiration was Hurricane Fighter Plane, right?
Okay.
Which is a track by Red Crayola, and it's just got this repeating bass line. And I've always really liked it. In no other way is it similar to that song, but it's got a kind of similarity with the bass line. And yes, another one that I couldn't be bothered to think of a proper title for. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Red Crayola is a pretty cool touchstone, though. I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I mean it would be hard to spot. I'm not going to lie because it is just
No.
it's the idea of a bass line that just cycles, and in the end, it's
Right.
not
Right.
even a bass line that cycles anymore. That got changed as well.
And how did you get exposed to Red Crayola?
To be fair, the version of Hurricane Fighter Plane that I first heard was being played by a band called the Purple Things in the
Okay.
early 80s. They were a kind of psychobilly kind of garage band. And yeah, and then the guy from them said, "Oh, that's actually a cover." And I was like, "Oops." And then I looked up the proper song and then thought, "Oh, that's quite interesting." It's sort of, I mean, I guess, you know, their version was heavier and more
Yeah.
rocky, and actually the original is there's something about some of those original garage songs. They are kind of lighter in a way, weirdly.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There was a band in New Zealand in the same time called Look Green Go Purple. I don't. They're one of those again flying non-obscure ones that were kind of coming back and forth. But it's an interesting name for a band, whether or not. Are you familiar with the New Zealand kind of scene at all? The
You're going to
chills
have
and
to,
the bats and the
yes, the Chills. I know. Is hang on, is Courtney? What's her name? Courtney. Isn't
Courtney
she from?
Barnett.
Yes, she is. She from
She's
New Zealand?
Australian, I'm afraid, but
Oh,
she has played here.
sorry. Sorry. God, I'm so
But
useless.
we have Aldous Harding is a New Zealander, though I think she's based
Okay.
in Wales now. So she's pretty cool. Yeah, check her out.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
incredibly ignorant with Actually, I am really bad at geography as well. Just so you know, yeah.
That's all right. We're down south. Yeah. So do you still do the publishing stuff as your real work, or is this taken over?
Do you know what? I haven't done any this year because the band has been so full on. But
Oh, that's
otherwise,
good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's nothing. I freelance. When I need
Right.
to.
Oh, okay.
All of my kind of regular job sort of went just before COVID, and it's actually why I ended up writing the book because
Right.
the magazine had folded, COVID came along, and I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. So I kind of took up the offer of writing the book because it just wasn't the time to go looking for a job. So
Yep.
another thing that happens by default.
There you go. Do you see writing more books?
I don't, yeah, I mean, maybe one day, not right now. I mean, look, this is the way
Not
I
today.
operate, right? This is the way I operate. Nothing is planned. Something has to happen. And then the next day I go, oh, okay, maybe I'll do that. There's no point in asking me like ahead of time because I have no idea.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I think I read a quote somewhere where somebody asked you about your hair color and why it was red, and why it's not, and you were just like, "Well, I just never got around to." That's just how it was. So it's kind
Oh
of your
yeah, I mean,
your
I am quite lazy with that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, I dyed it red, and then it was like, okay, that works. That's how it
yeah.
stayed for like 20 years or something. So
Okay.
I can't be bothered to muck about with it after that.
Yeah. Well, probably thinking of more important things than hair color and stuff like that. So
But once you find a winning formula, why change it?
exactly, exactly. So, do you see more records coming, more songs? Are you writing more? Since this is kind of you mentioned at the beginning of our chat that this feels almost old now that you've been doing it for these songs for a while.
Yeah, no, we will write more songs, not least because we now have to tour this album, and
Right.
we've actually been touring it for about 6 months, and I'm thinking I need to play some new songs. So
Fair
yes.
enough. You don't want to bore yourself at your shows.
No, exactly, exactly. People forget, we need to be like sort of, we need the new stuff as well to keep us
Right.
interested.
Very good. All right. Oh, one more thing. I think I read that the Shangri-Las were an influence on you as you read these things, do your research, and of course Mary Weiss, the lead singer, passed away recently. What was it about the Shangri-Las that connected you? Was it her voice? Was it the production, the songs?
Do you know what? I think a lot of that kind of girl group stuff I really liked as a teenager. Like,
Uh
what
huh.
intrigues me about this is that that was probably around 1980, 81, that sort of age. And or maybe a little bit later, but it's sort of weird, isn't it? That, I think when I was growing up, the idea of listening to something like 20 years old felt, it really did feel like another world. And
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
it was quite common for that era of young people to listen to 60s music.
Yeah.
It's so weird because now we're in 2025. People are listening, when people listen to 90s music, I think like, well, that's like me listening to like Peggy Lee or something
I
when I
know.
was
I've had
a,
that.
do you know what I mean? But I
Yes,
think the
I do.
Shangri-Las, there was a kind of, what I liked about them was that, I loved the Ronettes, I loved a lot of those kind of like Phil Spector groups, Shirelles and
Yep.
all of that. But there was something about the Shangri-Las, they were sort of, they seemed like proper teenagers,
Right.
and there was a sort of like, it's quite hysterical, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's all car crashes and sort of
There was a lot of drama.
yeah, which is really appealing when you're a teenager. It's very
Absolutely.
dramatic and kind of, I love that sort of idea of they're sort of quite sweet songs and there's this fragility to them, but they're kind of going off the rails, aren't they? I could
Yep.
relate to
Yep.
that. Yeah. And also, they're, just so you know, you won't know this because you're a man, right?
Okay.
But if you're a teenage girl, they are the perfect things to mime to. And I used to have a friend, Kate.
Oh,
We used to put the record on from start to finish, make up
right.
dances, and do hilarious mimes to them that we would be like sobbing with laughter, or the kind of I'm going to walk right up to him, give him a great big kiss.
Wow.
Exactly, with the stomping and everything. Yeah.
Well, that's got the New York Dolls going, because they used to cover that song. So
that's
there you
true.
Go.
That is true. Yes. Yeah. Shangri-La's version is better, though. It really is.
Of course it is. Of course it is. No question about it. But it just shows their influence, from the Dolls to Lush to who knows what.
Yeah, I think the G. Samara chain cited them as an influence as well, actually.
Very good. All righty. Well, I'll let you off the hook then. Thank you very much for all that and for making the record. What do you got planned for the day? Are you doing a gig or anything exciting when the
What have I got
released?
planned? It's 8:15 at night, and as you can see, I'm on my glass
No,
of wine.
not this day. The April 4th.
April 4th. So yeah, we're playing at Rough Trade East in London. So that's the launch due. Yeah.
Sounds like fun. All right. Well, good luck with it. Is there vinyl as well?
Vinyl, CD. It will be on your online blah, blah, blah as well. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, hopefully you make it down here sometime, but it doesn't sound like it's on your list of things to do yet.
I mean, I would love to, right? But Moose hates flying. Moose hates flying.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
To get him on a 30-hour flight or whatever, I mean, I would literally have to sedate him somehow and kidnap him. So
it's been done before.
Okay, well, I'll give you that task. All right.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.